I want to bring in right now Congressman Michael Waltz, Republican of Florida, former Green Beret, member of the House Armed Services Committee, and several tours under his belt in Afghanistan. Also with us, Representative Guy Reschenthaler, Republican of Pennsylvania, former U.S. Navy JAG officer, deployed extensively throughout Iraq. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. First to Congressman Waltz. What are your thoughts right now that America almost appears to have lost a war?
Well, this is a disaster of historic proportions. I think this is the biggest foreign policy disaster in modern American history. From a humanitarian standpoint, the women and girls that the left and the Democrats pretend to care about, our Afghan interpreters. From a credibility standpoint, this is also a disaster. Can you imagine what Taiwan, what Ukraine and other allies are thinking right now? I mean, they're shaking in their boots watching this administration abandon our allies. And then from a counterterrorism standpoint, America is far less safe. The Taliban and al-Qaeda are married at the hip. Al-Qaeda 3.0 will come roaring back. Biden's own intelligence community has repeatedly briefed us so, but this time it's going to be far worse. Because when we have to go back and deal with that, we've got no bases, no local allies, and the Taliban are going to be armed to the teeth, literally with warehouses full of armor, artillery, and heavy weapons. This is an absolute disaster, and it is infuriating to those of us who have sacrificed so much there.
I understand. You know, our intelligence community has gotten it wrong before, didn't predict 9/11 sufficiently. No weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and now the Taliban falling in minutes when it was supposed to take months, if not a year. Congressman Reschenthaler, beyond Joe Biden, and Joe Biden is responsible, but he's there to stay, I guess, for now. Who should lose their job immediately?
Well, I think Joe Biden should resign immediately. Not only this debacle that you have in Afghanistan, but you also have chaos on the southern border. Inflation is out of control. He clearly is not up for the job. But just going back to the comment on the intel community, you know, Joe Biden stood there on the stage and said the buck stops here, while he proceeded to blame our allies in Afghanistan. He proceeded to blame President Trump and the intel community. I just think that the intel community is being part of this scapegoat mission, this pass the buck, now the buck stops here, spin that Joe Biden is engaged in. And let me just make this prediction. My good friend Mike Waltz just said that the Taliban is going to be stronger than ever. They're also probably going to be stronger than ever because they have the opportunity now to partner with the Chinese Communist Party. Could you imagine a scenario where the Chinese Communist Party provides data surveillance to the Taliban government for the Taliban to crack down even harder on its citizens in exchange for the Chinese Communist Party being able to, I don't know, mine rare earth elements in Afghanistan? This is the debacle. As America sits down, our enemies stand up, and certainly the Taliban, Taliban will harbor terrorists, and the only people that gain besides the Taliban and terrorist organizations, Russia and China.
I don't think Joe Biden's going to resign. I would love to see it myself, but I do have a couple of people in mind who should resign and or might be fired. We'll come back with that, gentlemen. Stay with us. Back with us, two veterans, members of Congress, Congressman Michael Waltz, Republican of Florida, and Congressman Guy Reschenthaler, Republican of Pennsylvania. Gentlemen, your thoughts on General Milley, and let me just refresh your memory about where his priorities seem to have been over the past couple of months.
I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out.
And this from Secretary Lloyd Austin, something he's talked about quite a bit.
This department will be diverse. It will be inclusive. And we're going to look like the country that we support and defend.
Look, gentlemen, they have talked about Afghanistan, and those are just two sound bites. But it is my sense that they have gone all in on woke culture, and they've taken their eye off the ball in terms of America's strategic interests. Congressman Waltz, your thoughts, please.
Well, it's clear that we had no plan to evacuate our embassy. We had no plan to get out the interpreters who stood and fought with us and are now being hunted down as we speak. And I've asked repeatedly during those hearings and briefings for a counterterrorism plan for how we're going to keep al-Qaeda over there versus hitting us back over here with, again, no bases and no local allies. So I think if they were a little more worried about those things, and a little less worried about trying to lecture me on history lessons, I'm calling for Secretary Blinken to resign and Secretary Austin. They were both, by the way, in charge when we pulled out of Iraq too soon. That led to the rise of ISIS, a caliphate the size of Indiana, and attacks across Europe and the United States. So this is the same old crew that was with Obama that's now with Biden, and creating this same horror movie that's going to cost more American lives.
Secretary Blinken did look very weak. They all look weak, but I am particularly annoyed with General Milley and Secretary Austin. We'll see what happens. You guys, final thoughts, if you don't mind, Congressman Reschenthaler.
I just think it's a sad day, not only for the United States, but our ability to project power abroad. It's a sad day, certainly, for our allies who count on the United States to support them, and a sad day for the Afghan people. And let me just end by saying this. This was not inevitable. We could have retained the Bagram Air Base. We could have had a small contingency of, let's say, 2,000 troops. We're still in Germany. We're still in Japan. We're still in Korea. We're still in Cuba, for that matter. We should have always had a presence here and not ceded this territory and not let down our allies on the ground in Afghanistan.
Congressman Reschenthaler, Congressman Waltz, thank you. Thank you for your service, and to be continued. All the best. We'll be right back.